This is West Suburban's Organizing for Action Stand with Women group, and we are delighted tonight to have with us Illinois State Representative Mary Beth Canty. Mary Beth, go ahead.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure to be with you guys. I know I can't be here for very long, and I really appreciate you accommodating my schedule. I'll start with a few of the things that I got done in the spring. I had a pretty good spring session for a freshman. So we were able to accomplish some things that had not been done, had been seen as impossible things, starting with full day kindergarten access for all. And so that's been attempted for many, many years, trying to make sure that all of our youngest learners have the ability to attend full day kindergarten if their parents choose that option for them. So we found a path forward, and that will start in the school year 2027. And we also included a year of study so that we understand what the needs are of individual districts, so that if there are any gaps in terms of funding or et cetera, we can try and overcome those as a legislature. And there's some other pieces to that legislation that made it even more accessible for school districts. And so I'm really excited to continue that work. The next thing that we did was a pay transparency bill. So again, looking at the wage gap that we have in the US and here in Illinois, we know it disproportionately impacts women and people of color. And so what we were able to do, working with both proponents and opponents of the legislation, we were able to come up with a system wherein an employer that has 15 or more employees in the state of Illinois, if they choose to make a public job posting, they must tell you how much that job is worth at the time that they make the job posting. So not to a numerical certainty, but they have to give you a reasonable range that they expect to offer for the position. And we know that that will help people be able to level the playing field. A lot of people don't know what a job should be worth. This can be true if you're changing careers or new, if you're the first in your family to go into a particular career. I know I myself struggled with that as I was starting my law career. And so we think this will make a huge difference. And not only that, it includes teeth. So this is not just a thing that we put out as sort of a guideline. There are repercussions for not doing this. And I'm excited about that we got the business community to move from opposed to neutral on this bill. I think that speaks volumes to the amount of work that we put in. And I'll tell you, those conversations were not easy, and I pulled no punches. At one point, I said to a Zoom full of these business group leaders, "You are wasting my time." And after that, they really started to come more meaningfully to the table about what could we do and what was going to be reasonable. And we found a solution that worked for both Women Empowered, which was one of the advocacy groups that we were working for in support of the bill, and the business community. And I'm really proud of that. The next thing we did was begin to end food deserts across the state of Illinois. And so we created a grant program for independently owned grocery stores in food deserts. So not Walmart, not Jewel, those types of places, but independently owned grocery stores. If you are in an area that is classified as a food desert, you can get grant funding, and that will help you to get your doors open or to upgrade your equipment if you are already open. And we know that this improves local economies. We've seen it work in areas across the state, so it's pretty exciting. The last thing that we did that I'll talk about here is a bill to help our public safety employees. So think police, fire, corrections, et cetera, who are catastrophically or fatally injured in the line of duty. What we found was that municipalities in these instances, in some cases, what they were doing was dropping families down from their high premium, low deductible insurance policies into low premium, high deductible policies. And so, you've already lost your loved one who may have been either the primary breadwinner or the sole breadwinner for your family. You've already lost them. And now the municipality is asking you to pay more for your health insurance than you had originally planned to. We just felt that that was really wrong. I felt that was wrong. And so we were able to get that bill passed. And it was a pretty exciting time for me. Switching over to veto session, what we did felt more in the realm of, I'm going to jokingly say nothing, but it wasn't exactly nothing. There were several bills that were mandatorily vetoed by the governor. That's a pretty rare instance when we control both chambers of the legislature. But he made some changes. And so what we ended up doing in most cases was accepting those amended vetoes. The most controversial things that we looked at in the veto were the nuclear moratorium. So we were able, I wasn't the one working on this, but the proponents of this bill were able to work with the environmental groups to shift almost all of them into a neutral position regarding lifting the nuclear moratorium. And then the other thing was allowing the Invest in Kids or the scholarship tax credit program to expire. And so that expired by virtue of the fact that we just did nothing with it, either in the spring or in the veto session. So those are some of the major things. And I don't want to leave out or minimize the work that we did on behalf of the 708 boards. For those of you, particularly in Wheeling Township, this was a major issue. Wheeling Township was unique in that its township spent several thousands of dollars to try and defeat the mental health board referendum in the fall. They lost. The referendum was approved by nearly 2,000 voters. And so they were trying to undo the will of the voting public, the township board, rather than implement it and put this question back on the ballot. They were hoping to get it back on the ballot in the March 2024 primary, because they know that they would be able to scare a lot of people and that it would be predominantly a Republican-driven primary. And so we were able to pass legislation during the veto session, which amends the election code. And so it basically tells the clerks that they are not allowed to put on the question, put on the ballot in 2024 any referendum question that was passed in 2022. And that's critically important because it doesn't leave room for error and it applies to any question. So we think that'll be a big lift for the supporters of the township mental health boards, particularly in Wheeling Township. And we were able to read in the legislative intent during floor debate. So, you know, it felt like we did a lot of nothing, a few small things that had a big impact. And overall, I think we got to the right place on most issues.
Yeah, I know that 708 board, that was very disappointing in the Wheeling Township. The way it was handled, something that could be so great.
Yeah. I mean, I think it'll make a huge difference. Our police departments know that this is needed. We know that this is needed. We know that mental health is a huge, huge concern in all age ranges. And so to try and look for ways to thwart efforts to provide better access, especially when the voters have said, yes, we get it. There's going to be a small tax increase, but this is a thing that we support because we know how desperately needed these services are. It just felt really undemocratic. So I'm glad we were able to overcome.
How do you like being in a veto session?
Haha, this was my first one. And I was joking, you know, I was supposed to carry a couple bills in the veto. And then the bills that I was going to carry, instead of being individual bills, ended up being caught up in omnibus bills. So it left me with not a ton to do. So I was joking with people, you know, idle hands means I get to make mischief, but I tried to make the best mischief, or, you know, as our friend John Lewis used to say, good trouble, right? So I tried to highlight where I thought things were, people were trying to be sneaky or things like that. So I think on the whole, I kind of liked it.
Joyce writes down, there are some concerns about Invest in Kids coming back in January. Would that have to be a new bill?
Yes, it would. So there were a couple bills that were filed. There was one that I know of by a group of Republicans. There was one that was by a small group of Democrats. You know, I don't think that we're ever going to see the true end of that conversation. So we have to stay ever vigilant. I am not somebody who likes to poke the bear unnecessarily. So I tried not to gloat about the fact that we did have this sunset go through, because I know the fight is not over. And so I'd encourage all of us not to gloat too much.
Right.
There is still time for the proponents of this program. And when I tell you that they are working extremely hard, they are. And they're bringing in unlikely partners, which is a strategy that I myself have employed throughout my entire career. So they will do that, and they will look for the weakest links to put together their coalition. So it's not a time for gloating. It is a time to graciously accept a win when you get it, and then keep moving forward and stay vigilant.
I have a question about the monies being allocated for the grants for food deserts. How well is that money getting distributed? Sometimes you hear of these great ideas, and then sometimes the money just doesn't flow like it should.
Yeah, it's a great question. So the money will come through grants through the DCEO agency. And so in Q1, they will have an application available. And as soon as that's available, I will make sure that that is really well publicized. I think we've done a pretty good job being very public about this program. But until that notice of financial opportunity, or NOFO, is out there, nothing is moving. And so it'll become available in Q1. I've been pushing on DCEO really hard to get that application up and ready to go. But you will know as soon as I do when it's available.
I think it's great. Yeah. See, Barb Anderson is asking, going forward, what is the best way to interact with you regarding issues we want to bring to your attention? Email, visit to your office, other? Thanks.
Yeah, all of those things. So I'm a pretty easily accessible legislator. I think there's several of us who are. Email is, to be honest with you, it kind of depends on the issue and how comfortable you are speaking about it. If it's something that is very, very personal to you and you're trying to talk about new legislation, one of the best things to do is to call my office and set up some time, a conversation with my chief of staff, and walk her through the initial pieces. And then we can set a follow-up session. If you're trying to express support or opposition to a bill, email my office. That is always really great, info.repmbc@gmail.com. We do log all of those. It's always best to include, if you can, your first name, your last name, and at the very least, the town in which you live, because we do track by constituent versus non-constituent. Constituent emails are always the best. So I would encourage people that you know to reach out as well in the community. But yeah, whatever way is most comfortable to you is the way to get in touch with my office. The one place I will say is not a good place to communicate is via social media. So we use social media as a pushing out channel. We don't allow commenting, either positive or negative, on our posts. And that is because I find social media to be a cesspool. I think it very, very quickly can go downhill with people throwing barbs at each other. And frankly, I do not want to waste my staff's emotional capital monitoring those issues. So we try to make sure that people know, don't reach out to us on social media. You can always like our posts, you can always share our posts. But if you're thinking that you're going to go there and comment and engage on substantive issues, you're just not. But you're always welcome to call, to email, to stop in. But it's not social media.
Looks like Mark Lundholm, let me get back here now. What is happening in Illinois regarding the IRA funding rollout? Do you know about that?
I do not. So that would be a good one to send me an email so that I can follow up. I am not familiar with that.
And Bill Davis has a question. Are you hearing from our progressive community on issues, or mainly from detractors? That's a good question.
On any issues, it kind of depends, right? So on nuclear, I was more likely to hear from people that were opposed to lifting the nuclear moratorium on investing kids. I was more likely to hear from people that really wanted me to keep the program. And, it's good to hear from everybody, right? Proponents and opponents, so that you understand what the arguments are being made on both sides. And that gives me a really great way to ask questions. But I think it would really depend on the issue, who I heard more from. And Kathy, I probably have time for one more, and then I'm going to have to jump.
All right. What's been your biggest surprise?
Ooh, my biggest surprise. Honestly, I thought I was going to get in and be one of those people who is like, we don't want to deal with lobbyists. We never want to talk to lobbyists. And a lot of people have said that. And the biggest surprise for me has been how helpful lobbyists can be in getting me information that I need on both sides of an issue, right? I think, folks come in and they think, oh, well, we'll have term limits. And there are some people that sort of term limit themselves, right? And they'll say, oh, I'm only going to do this for 3 terms because I don't think anybody should stay in for more than 3 terms or however many terms. And so then the only experts that are left are the lobbyists. And so for me, they've actually been helpful when I say, I want to talk to an expert about XYZ thing, or I want to know what the financial impact is of Y, or, the proponents of this bill are saying ABC thing, but I don't understand it that way. Why? Right? They've been really helpful for me as sources of information. And so I think, we can't just paint everybody with a broad brush and say all lobbyists are terrible, because I don't think they are. I think a lot of them are good. They're passionate about their issues. And just like with anybody else, you take what they say with a grain of salt, but you can't be afraid of them and you shouldn't refuse to talk to anybody.
Very good. That's interesting. I know for me, the big surprise is that we have to do another election soon, right? You're already
Yes,
talking to
yes,
people.
yes. We were already out knocking doors and doing petitions, and that was what I heard a lot. Didn't I just do this for you? And the answer is yes, yes, you did. And now I need you to do it one more time.
Mary Beth, thank you. It's been so great.
Thank you
having
so
you
much.
tonight.
You are just so enthusiastic about everything. It's just
Thank you. I love this job. I love being able to work with my colleagues. I love being able to work with y'all too. So thank you. I'm happy to come back anytime.
We'd love to have you back. Tell us what's upcoming next time. Thank you. We'll let you go.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So this will end our session with Mary Beth Canty, Illinois State Representative for Illinois 54.